listening to the OMG MotoGP podcast with former Grand Prix rider and British champion Keith Huewen and myself, Amy Reynolds. This week, we're looking ahead to the Thai Grand Prix at the Chang International Circuit in Buriram. There are 20 points splitting the two title contenders, Francesco Bagnaia and Jorge Martin. Jorge Martin, of course, leads the way, but with 111 points on the board, you've got to think, Keith, Pecco not only needs to get out there and win, but it looks right now like he could do with a bit of luck on his side as well.
Well, I don't think luck's going to come into it this time around. I think there's dog eat dog at the moment. I don't know about luck. And certainly the spoilers are the thing that counts. Pecco's new teammate for 2025 is interfering with them, isn't he? Mr. Marquez, who's going to be alongside Pecco next year. He's already stamping some authority over things on the 2023 Ducati off the back of Australia. He took points off of Jorge Martin at the weekend in Australia. So that would have been a good thing for Pecco because Pecco just didn't have the pace of the front two runners. So I don't think there won't be any animosity at the moment. But certainly the stress levels on one side of the red garage is going to be fairly high, I would suggest. Thailand has a habit of throwing up some very interesting last corner, last lap kind of manoeuvres. It's a good track for Pecco, so he should be back something like on form. But I just think we've talked about it so many times. Jorge Martin, the new Jorge Martin, if you like, the 2024 version of Jorge Martin is someone who will take the points if he has to. I think, looking back to Australia, Marquez and Jorge Martin could have easily have been in a dogfight, but I got the feeling that Jorge Martin knew where he was in the championship, and the old Jorge Martin, who would have gone rushing in with a big, rush of blood to the head, didn't. He took 20 points instead of 25. He's playing the long game. He's got 3 rounds left to get it right. It's 37 points a round, including the sprint. It's all on Pecco. Let's see what he comes up with. It's a good track for him, but there's going to be the spoilers that get between them that he's going to cause trouble. And it depends on weather as well. This time of the year in Thailand, it's just the beginning of the good season from my point of view. When we get into November, you start to get really, really nice weather, but you still can get thunderstorms and the like in October. It's still, reasonably, not in the rainy season, but thereabouts. It's closing down. Buriram is in the center of the country, so it can either be baking hot or a bit like the Czech Republic. Whenever we go to the Czech Republic, it's a landlocked area. With no sea breeze or anything blowing off of it. So it can be either way. It can be an absolute cooker, or it can be thunderstorms every 5 o'clock in the evening.
You mentioned Pecco's good record, but unfortunately, if we look back at Jorge Martin's performance last year, it's even better. He took an absolute clean sweep. He topped every session. He won the sprint race. He won the Grand Prix. How much do you think that comes into Pecco's thinking entering into this Grand Prix?
Well, whatever we think, or whatever he tries not to think, and I think that would be the case, he's got to block that stuff out. He looked a little bit frustrated. He didn't have the performance in Phillip Island. If he's in the same position when we get to Thailand, if they can't work around whatever they've got as an issue, that is going to be a problem for Pecco. And because you're right, Jorge Martin's on a roll. He probably should have won both races in Phillip Island, which puts him in good stead when we move forwards. It's only because maybe he took a slightly more reticent view of Marc Marquez at Phillip Island that he didn't take a double. Marquez certainly was a class act. But I wonder if Jorge Martin hadn't been fighting for a championship, whether Marc Marquez would have, I won't say got away with it, because I don't think he got away with it. He put himself in that position. But the point being is that he didn't go for the scrap, did he? He didn't go for the alley cat scrap that I think we would have seen if we'd started the season. I said this in a podcast that we did the other day with Renita. If those guys are at the beginning of the season fighting for the championship, I think we'd see more of a dogfight. But as it happens, Marc's not going for the championship. He's regained third place in the series over Bastianini, courtesy of Phillip Island. So he's looking for a third place. But that's just a second loser, as far as he's concerned. Second place or third place in the world title doesn't mean anything to the likes of Marc Marquez. He's only in the number one slot that he's looking for. And Thailand could be good for him. But there's no doubt about it. With that long straight, the 23 bike is not as fast as the 24 bike. whatever way we look at it. Whether that's because of the ride height adjustment is slightly different on the 24 machine compared with 23 and so forth. It doesn't launch quite as well, doesn't stick to the road quite so well. Stick to the road, provided he doesn't chuck a tear off under his rear wheel again. Could be worse. He could have chucked it under the front wheel coming into Doohan's. I'm joking. It was a bad joke.
For the rest of the guys in the championship this year, it's a long year. There's obviously a lot of races. When you've just hit the nail on the head there. Like for a third place for a guy like Marc Marquez is kind of like meh. But I guess he still will get like not win bonuses. Well, yeah, still win bonuses and bonuses. I assume for finishing third in the championship. Is there still enough incentive for a season that is so long for the rest of the guys in the championship?
Well, I get where you're alluding to there. I mean, the fact is that Marc Marquez is self-motivating. It's got nothing to do with money. Otherwise, he wouldn't be riding a Gresini Ducati. He'd stay with Honda and took millions and millions of dollars more money out of the deal. He went to Gresini to give himself an opportunity to win another world title. So, the guy is a little bit special on several fronts. He's self-motivated. And I think, that never say die, never give up. Grab the bone and chew it to bits is Marc Marquez. I mean, he's a remarkable fella. And I don't care what's going to happen when the trolls start on me in our comment section below, because you've got to take your hat off to the guy. Anybody that can come back from the kind of injuries he's had, the reputation that he has is not to everybody's liking, perhaps, but at the end of the day, from a competitor point of view, from a sportsman point of view, there is no one to equal Marc Marquez when it comes to the determination to win races. And we are going to, Frankie Carcetti, crew chief at Gresini for Marc, he said to me a few weeks ago that we, and I think collectively he means everybody outside of the team, have no idea what's coming when he gets to the factory Ducati. And those words coming from someone who I massively respect, Frankie Carcetti, who's seen some fantastic riders over the years, worked for some fantastic riders over the years. When he says something like that, then you know that he's looking at the data. He's looking at what Marc's doing. He is seeing the overall picture. There will be people obviously on site that are seeing that in the paddock as well. Team managements and the like see this, through realistic glasses. But when Frankie says something, you have no idea what this guy will be capable of on an up-to-date motorbike. That must be slightly frightening for everybody else rolling into 2025. Of course, he's got to stay fit. Those things interfere with it. But I think, getting back to your question, other people are going to be trying to block everything except focusing on their own setup and their own race. A mark of modern day MotoGP for me is the way that each individual rider focuses only on his game. Sometimes we as journalists ask the question, have you seen what so-and-so has done lap time? Have you seen what he has achieved on this motorbike? He's running this tire or he's running that suspension. We'll ask the question and they'll be almost oblivious to it. For sure, his crew chief will have made notes of what other people are running so that they've got an option to try on his motorbike. But from a rider perspective, they are focused only on their own game to get that last thousandth of a second. How many times last weekend in Phillip Island did we see exactly the same time to 3 decimal places on a track like Phillip Island, for God's sake, on different motorbikes? It's unbelievable how tight it is nowadays. And that next thousandth of a second comes from in your head rather than from setup.
I'm going to touch back on our title fight again, just one more time, because I just want to pick apart a quote from Jorge Martin, and perhaps that showed in his performance at Phillip Island on Sunday in the fact that he didn't go for that last lap scraps quite so much. He was quoted in saying, like, there are 3 races in which yet to make mistakes.
And that is the new Jorge Martin, isn't it? It is the new guy. It's the guy this year that has absolutely matured into that weapon. Pecco on the back foot, looking slightly stressed. Jorge Martin looking pretty relaxed. And if you look, it's funny. I did a little bit of prep. 26 podiums. Jorge Martin has had compared with the 21 of Bagnaia. Bagnaia has won equal amounts of sprint races as Jorge Martin, and he's won 6 more Grand Prix, the main races. Pecco Bagnaia has got a fantastic. When you look at it in just race wins terms, why is Bagnaia 20 points behind? It's because he's thrown away points that he really needed to have, and I think that's where Jorge Martin has become what is looking like a true MotoGP world champion. You've got to take the maximum points you can. I think Pecco at Phillip Island did that. He finished third. He was there or thereabouts, but he did not have more pace than third place at Phillip Island. But instead of pushing his luck and losing the front end, or something at Phillip Island, he took those points. He took the 16 points.
Well, Pecco has 7 non-scores versus Jorge Martin, who I think he's got 4. But Pecco, when speaking to Matt Burt this weekend, actually back-referenced when he was asked specifically about the championship. He back-referenced his coming together with Alex Marquez and how he's kind of like blamed that as to why he's in the position he is now in the championship. But I think when you have that many non-scores on the board, you can't really isolate it.
I think he's looking for, I think we all do it in life, don't we? We look for somebody else to blame, if we can, for our predicament, whatever that might be. And I think perhaps a little bit of that snuck out from Pecco. I heard that interview. And I remember thinking to myself at the time, that is not really Pecco Bagnaia. I mean, normally he would keep a lid on that. It's about keeping it squashed back, keeping it down. The professionalism of Pecco Bagnaia normally wouldn't allow him to snap back. Obviously aggravated him slightly. So it's in the front of his head. He's got to get rid of that. He's got to get that out of his brain and get on with what we know he's well capable of doing. He's still capable of winning this world title, no problem at all. But there's no doubt about it. He's rattled.
I was going to say, do you think he's already lost it in his mind?
No, I think that he would. This is the wonderful thing about Bagnaia. He's pretty much a complete motorbike racer. It's just getting a little bit the better of him at the moment. And I mean, that is the psychological game that everybody plays at this level. And I'm slightly surprised that it's sort of sneaking out, that we're seeing it. He can't keep it in his own garage. It's blaming Alex Marquez. It's not really what you should be doing. You should be focusing on what you're doing right or wrong and making that work for the last 3 Grand Prix. I mean, the nightmare scenario is we go to Valencia, and it's going to be a who wins the title. It's actually, is it a nightmare scenario?
That's the best scenario.
Best scenario. Yeah, you're right. I'm talking from a rider perspective, purely and simply because Valencia probably, in my mind, is the worst track to end up on for the final season finale. Purely and simply because it's a one-line, freezing cold, tricky track. Great track from a spectator point of view because you can see the whole track. Valencia is a great city, great region, but to finish a series there just seems slightly odd to me. But looking forward, Thailand will be the start of the next year. It's going to be pivotal in this championship this year. The only sad thing for me this year is that Somkhat Chantra won't be riding in the Moto2 race. He's been declared unfit. So no Somkhat this year, but of course Somkhat next year in March is an LCR MotoGP racer. I tell you, I did my bookings the other day. Bloody hell, it's hard to get a hotel. And I know what I'm doing in Thailand. Obviously, I've lived there for years.
Are you going to go out?
I'm out there for next year, yeah. I mean,
perfect.
Because it's going to be a go-to race meeting. I mean, Thailand is fantastic anyway, but the Thai Grand Prix is a fantastic Grand Prix. Nobody does it quite like the Thais. It's got that kind of intensity, but yet relaxed. I mean, how can you have the two in one sentence? And that's exactly what Thailand is. It's intense, but it's relaxed. And being the first round of the year, and being Somkhat on an LCR, not that he's going to do anything on it, but it will be interesting to see him on a MotoGP bike for the first time. So I'm booked, paid for, it's done. My own money, by the way.
Just before we move off the topics of riders being fit, Pedro Acosta obviously missed the race on Sunday in Australia. We believe that he will be going to Buriram to see if he can be past fit. It's stretched ligaments, but when we talk about kind of key players that will take a part or be a part in the outcome of this championship, you would have put Pedro Acosta down as being one of those, but perhaps not so much now.
Difficult circumstances. Shoulder injury that he's got is one that could play him up until the end of the season, beyond the end of the season. It's not the kind of thing you need. It's not the kind of thing you want. He's not going for a title. At the end of the day, he's got to look after himself because he's got a lot of work to do before next year. He'll go to Thailand. My feeling is with that injury, not that I've seen all the latest notes and stuff that go with it, but I would say that 1 week on, it's too soon. It will be bloody painful. Dislocation originally and ligament damage is, that's a big deal. Shoulder injuries, I know about them, and they last a long time, forever, in actual fact, once you've got one. So, he needs to let that recover. The worst thing he can do is cause himself even more trouble with that shoulder prior to next year is not that far away. Next season is not that far away. He needs to properly get fit. And if that arm is not strong, if he's got a lot of pain coming through it, he needs to dump Thailand. Enjoy the social side, but not the racing side, perhaps.
Yeah. And this, of course, will be the final race of 2024 for Fabio Di Antonio.
Yeah, I mean, like that's the speculation is who's going to replace him. And Digi is obviously going for the big operation. I know the smile on your face because you've been seeing the rumours as well, hearing the rumours as well that Valet might make the ride. I would eat my hat if Valentino Rossi races. It just won't happen. I'm sure of it. I don't think Valentino would ever put himself in that position, having not. Although he's still fast on a track bike, on the R1 and stuff like that. He still competes. He's still racing around his own ranch. But to step into a MotoGP, it would only be for a PR reason. Rather,
I think there's perhaps other contenders that, even from their side, it would benefit more if they had that opportunity to wildcard.
Yeah, I mean, they're talking about Iannone as well, aren't they? Andrea Iannone, the bad boy, the crazy Joe, the maniac, as he self-titled himself, the seagull murderer.
Oh, God.
That's Phillip Island a few years ago.
We'll have to find out.
It's kind of one of them ones where, again, for Iannone to step from World Superbikes into MotoGP, you'd be lucky if you manage a top 15 in that circumstance. It would be a special kind of a ride. It's you can't just step in at this time of the year where everybody's as sharp as they are and expect to perform at that level. From a PR point of view, it's going to be interesting whoever steps in there. Digi, we wish him well. He had a bit of a weekend at Phillip Island, and now he moves on to getting himself fixed for 2025. Sorry, I'm ahead of myself.
Just before we wrap up the news going into this Grand Prix, not directly related to MotoGP, but in the bigger picture it is, there was a headline today about the Pierer Mobility Group reducing their board of directors, so cutting costs essentially. Do you think there is a possibility that will start filtering down to their MotoGP efforts, or do you think it's the opposite? This is so they can continue plugging.
I don't know which podcast it was, but if you roll back through them, if you can be bothered with it, or somebody else might remember which one it was. But I kind of covered this earlier. You can't have a 1.4 billion euro deficit in your books as a group, as a company, over the gas, all the different KTM versions that there are. They've had a bad 2024 from a motorcycle sales point of view, and you can't have an overall deficit within the Pierer Mobility Group without looking at where you're going to save money. And I asked the question previously whether this was going to have a knock-on effect with the race team. Race teams are an easy target. They're spending millions on development and staff, and it's an easy target to cut, a good few euros off of your overall corporate bill, and they're hard decisions that you have to make. How often do we think of Suzuki, one of my very favorite brands, great race team? They came from nowhere again to winning Grand Prix. And they, despite the fact they'd signed a new deal with Dorna for another 5 years or whatever it was, dropped MotoGP. Just like that, seemingly out of the blue. And that can only come from their directors on their board looking forward to the fact that the motorcycle market not be quite they might not fit within the motorcycle market with their models of motorcycles quite as well as they needed to move forward. And so therefore spending money on MotoGP was an expense worth culling. And they did, just like that. And I think that Suzuki, very smart corporate business method, strategy, pulled out. All of us were crying because losing Suzuki was a major thing. But probably from a corporate point of view, strategically, was what they needed to do to move forward eventually, maybe make a comeback eventually, who knows, and get their product in an area that MotoGP promoted. Pierer Mobility, they threw the kitchen sink at it a few years ago when KTM came in with that brand new, all swinging, all dancing Grand Prix bike. They poached top talent around the paddock. I remember there was you could name your price almost as a technician. If you were a good technician back in the day, name your price to be working at KTM because they needed staff. Well, we've gone the other way now. The KTM is not performing very well. The Gas, which is a KTM, in the hands of Costa is your top moving motorcycle out on the track. Binder's looking sharp at the minute. Jack Miller not so. It's difficult times for KTM and difficult decisions. And if they're culling the board and trimming costs, then it is going to affect. In my opinion, obviously I don't know. I'm not that close to KTM, obviously, but in my opinion, yes, corporately, it is going to cost MotoGP, their team.
Before we wrap up and get your predictions for this week, our predictions, I've got to chip in my own. I have not even thought about them. Right. Whilst you answer my next question, I'm going to start writing some down. Do you think Ayagura will wrap up the Moto2 title this weekend? He is currently 61 points ahead. He's got to be 50 clear by the end of the weekend.
Yeah, I think that there's 75 on the table and he's got 65 points at the minute. So, yes, I think he will. Hopefully it's not a championship that goes out with a whimper in that he finishes fourths and fifths and all the rest of it to the end of the season, because no one wants to finish their year like that. It's a funny thing, you win a championship and then there's 2 rounds left or whatever there is, and you go, yeah, I've got no restrictions now. I can just go for it. I've not got to think about the championship anymore. I'm just going to go out and win the race. And you still perform to the level that the bike and you are capable of on the day. You can't extend to something that's not there. You can't make yourself win just by saying I'm not bothered about a championship anymore, so I can go for it. The times that people turn around and say that, your performance is dictated by how you've set the bike up, how mentally you are fit and ready to do the job, as to whether you actually manage to do the job. I think he's in a prestige position. I think he will win the championship this weekend. He's got to score so few points at the end of the day, and it depends where his main rival, who are we talking about? That's in that is Canet still, isn't it? And yeah. Canet's luck is never quite there. I mean, Fermin Aldegar barging him out of the way at MG at the Australian round at the weekend. I mean, harsh. There's no doubt about it. It was harsh, But again, we're not flower arranging, and we were 2 corners from the flag, so you got to do it. And Aldegar's, he's got the minerals, as our old friend Michael Laverty would say, to carry off a manoeuvre like that, and he did. And Canet got barged out into second place again, lost him 5 points. And I can see that happening to Canet still as we roll through. Is Canet the kind of guy that we can rely on 3 race wins over the next final 3 Grand Prix? You're shaking your head, and I would be exactly the same.
Yeah, we've chatted this. No. Yeah, exactly. We've chatted about this before. Unfortunately, Aaron Canet is just not great at finishing the job off, which is a shame because he's obviously a great rider. But
having said that, Aldegar now is only 66 points behind, and he is capable of winning the last 3 Grand Prix. So it's not done and dusted. I mean, Aldegar, we saw what he was prepared to do at Phillip Island, and that's what it's going to take. You're going to need to have your elbows out. If he took 75 points out of it, and Agura crashes or is too reticent to stick it in there and get the major points, then it still can be done. But I don't think so. I think Agura is going to win it in Thailand.
Right. Prediction time.
Right.
Do you want to go first?
No, you go first. You go first.
No.
Oh, you want me to go first? Oh, okay.
Yes.
I understand what. You want me to go first because you've not done your prep.
No. Exactly. You go first. I'll write yours down and I'll have a look at them and see if I agree.
Well, I had Jorge Martin as a double in Phillip Island. I missed out on that one. So I'm going to go Jorge Martin as a double in Thailand to put massive pressure on Bagnaia. I think Marquez is going to be there. And Bagnaia, I mean, I can't see it any other way. Binder is on a bit of a resurgence. I'd love to see Binder somewhere in there as well, but I just don't think the bike is quite good enough to take on even the 2023 bike with the likes of Marquez on it. But I am going to go Jorge Martin for the double, sprint and Grand Prix. Marquez second in the sprint.
Okay.
Bagnaia. Binder third in the sprint.
Right.
There you go. I'm going to put my money where my mouth was, and have Binder in the top three in the sprint. In the Grand Prix, Jorge Martin, Marquez, Pecco Bagnaia.
Okay. So you're not putting Pecco in your sprint podium at all?
No.
Right. I'm going to just do something for fun here.
They're all for fun because we'll never get them right.
Well, I'm going to go the complete opposite of you and do... I would want to just put Pecco as my main race on Sunday win, just because I think he needs to come out fighting. And I think when Pecco does need to come out fighting, he normally does.
Or
so
crashing.
Don't jinx my podium. Right, I'm going to go for Pecco. Right, I'm going to do the total opposite view. I'm going to do Pecco for the double. I'm going to do Marc Marquez second in the sprint. I'm actually not going to put Jorge Martin in my sprint. I'm actually going to put Didier because he actually finished, I think, fourth, and that's with his injury. And I think he'll want to go out with a bit of a statement of intent for next year. And I think if he's going to do it, he'll probably do it more likely in the sprint race because it's a shorter distance. And then I'll do Pecco, I'll do Jorge Martin, and I'll do Marc for the main race. So we shall see who is closer to actuality come Sunday afternoon and probably have a good laugh at my expense. Are you writing mine down?
No, I'm not.
Is that what you're doing? Checking the odds?
No, I'm not doing that. But Digi's not going to be there, is he?
No, I thought this was his last race.
Is it his last race or was Australia his last race? Oh, you're probably right, actually. No, you are right. You are right. Sorry, that was mine. Yeah, I was going to say, it was stuck in my brain for a moment. It's the last two that he misses, isn't it? Not the last three. Yeah. Okay, sorry. Because then
my prediction would have been absolutely wrong.
Yeah, well, let's hope Digi has a good weekend. I mean, it's, yeah. I've actually got it written down in front of me in big letters. Digi, not in the last two GPs, having an operation. Rumour will be replaced by Andrea Iannone or Pirro or Petrucci. Some say VR, Valentino Rossi, but I just can't see that.
No, me neither. Right. Just a reminder that you can, in fact, join Keith and I on Monday for the live recording. That is something exclusive for our Patreon members, of which you can find out more about on the links below. But it's a good opportunity to come and see the behind the scenes, ask us a few questions, and just be a part of it, really.
Yeah, hear me swearing a lot before we go on.
Oh, having a bit of a rant about something.
Yeah, talking complete rubbish.
All right. So that's it from myself and Keith for the preview of the Thai Grand Prix. Have a lovely weekend. And like I said, join us again on Monday.